Hello YouTube, this is Let's Talk Horror, and welcome back to another video. Okay, how's it going today, guys? Today I wanted to jump on this channel once again and give my thoughts on the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that just released on Netflix. I have now seen the movie twice, did not have high expectations for it, and let's see what I thought. First of all, if you may be wondering, the reason I haven't really talked about this franchise on my channel before is, simply put, this is not my preferred franchise. And I want to start off by saying, if it's yours, if this is your franchise, that's awesome. That's cool. I'm glad that as a franchise you can enjoy something that I don't get a ton of enjoyment out of, outside of a couple of movies. Because honestly, out of all the movies in this franchise, the only ones that I go back to on a fairly regular basis and seem to get genuine enjoyment out of are the 1974 one. I love that movie. I consider it one of the three big movies of the 1970s that really launched the slasher craze of the 1980s. The other two being obviously Halloween 1978 and Black Christmas, which also came out in 1974. And then I love the remake. The remake, I don't revisit that often, but I thought it was a pretty damn good remake. But outside of that, I've only seen a lot of these movies once or twice, and that's largely because upon, first or second watch, I just wasn't that impressed with them. I know a lot of people love Texas Chainsaw 2. I know a lot of people love that movie. I am not in that camp. I did not like Texas Chainsaw 2. Leatherface Texas Chainsaw 3 is the most generic and bland slasher movie I think I've ever seen, or one of them. It's not bad, it's okay, but it's so forgettable. And then Texas Chainsaw, The Next Generation, I didn't remember enjoying. And then you get the remake, which I do enjoy. And then you get The Beginning, which I guess is a prequel. I've only seen that one twice. I think I remember it being okay. And then if I'm not mistaken, then you get Texas Chainsaw 3D, which, to be fair, I thought took more heat from people than I think it deserved, but I think it was only okay. And then, of course, you get Leatherface, which is the only one I haven't seen. And then you get this new one. And my expectations were not high for the new one because this is just not my franchise in that regard. That I honestly only genuinely enjoy two of these movies. And by the way, I will probably be ranking this franchise within the next week or two. I did intend to sit down and watch the entire franchise in the week leading up to the 2022 release. I just didn't have the time. And that's kind of what I like about these kind of direct to original sequels, is that you only really have to watch the original to understand the timeline, which is good because, let's be honest, a lot of these franchises are, 8, 9, 10 movies deep, so it's nice that you don't have to watch a lot of the sequels, which aren't very good, to understand the timeline. Just wanted to say that. And then another reason I didn't have high expectations for this movie is simply because what went on behind the scenes. If you don't know, production started, and I believe it was a directing duo, if I'm not mistaken, that was initially hired. And the week into filming, maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks, the production company, I believe it was Legendary Pictures, reviewed the footage and was so disappointed with what they had gotten so far that they fired the original directors and they replaced them with David Blue Garcia. That right there was a big red flag for me that this might not be very good. And then the other red flag for me is that, remember, this was supposed to be a theatrical release, guys. This was not supposed to come out on Netflix, but immediately after production was done, the rights were sold to Netflix. So, to me, the fact that they couldn't even really book it for a January release, where all the, shitty movies for the year ago, not all of them, but They're good January releases, but I digress. That was a big warning sign. And so I had the lowest expectations possible. But at the end of the day, what did I think of Texas Chainsaw 2022? I can now say that there are 3 movies in this franchise that I genuinely enjoy. And maybe it's because of the low expectations, but I had a lot of fun with this one. Now look, if you're looking for a great story in this one, you're not going to get that here. But if you're looking for 2 hours, well, not 2 hours, 83 minutes of Leatherface just fucking people up, and some great gore and great kills, you are absolutely going to get that. Leatherface, I think, is the strongest aspect of this movie. I like this portrayal of Leatherface. I do believe, much like from James Jude Courtney's version of The Shape, much like how I believe that was, Nick Castle's Michael Myers 40 years later, I believe that the portrayal of this Leatherface, although to a lesser extent, I believe this Leatherface is Mark Burnham, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I believe this Leatherface is Gunnar Hansen's Leatherface 50 years later. I also really like the look of Leatherface in this movie. I think it's a very unique look. I don't think this is the first movie in the franchise where Leatherface is not part of a bigger family. In most of these movies, he's just a pawn for the Sawyer family or the Slaughter family. Well, not in this one. And I actually think that's refreshing. I know some may not feel that way. I know some will say it makes Leatherface unique, that he's kind of a pawn for the Slaughter family or the Sawyer family. But to me, it's kind of what has made this franchise a little bit more repetitive than other franchises like Friday the 13th or Halloween. And to be clear, don't rip my head off, because I understand these franchises do get repetitive at certain points. I get that. But I mean, they all get repetitive to one extent or another, but I remember when watching these movies, I always felt like Texas Chainsaw Massacre got more repetitive than others in this franchise. And this one doesn't feel like, at least from what I remember, the others in the franchise. So I like that. The cinematography is great in this as well. It's a very good looking movie, a lot of interesting colors, a lot of interesting visuals. It's very well directed by David Blue Garcia. And man, if you like gore, you are going to get a lot of gore in this movie. You are going to get a lot of good kills in this movie. Again, you're not going to get much story. And that's kind of one of my complaints. For what it is, and it's just 2 hours of Leatherface fucking people up, it was pretty damn good. Again, great colors, a lot of interesting, blue lighting and yellow lighting. And by the way, the bus scene, which, whether you were excited for this movie or not, the bus scene does live up to the hype. That scene is badass. And then I will say I also like the ending of this movie as well. The ending, it was a great surprise. Maybe a little forced, although maybe not. But the ending was kind of a great homage to the original, so I really liked that. It involved the death of a character that I honestly didn't care for in the movie. But yeah, guys, overall, this is a very well-made, gory, gritty Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Some of the things I didn't like, I didn't necessarily like the character of Sally Hardesty being included in this movie. It felt way too much like Halloween 2018, and after seeing it, her role in this is so forced. In fact, by my calculation, she's in the movie, and I actually timed it every time she was on screen. She's in the movie for less than 10 minutes. And most of that is her confrontation with Leatherface. And I wasn't really invested in her story or her confrontation with Leatherface. Her confrontation with Leatherface is brief to begin with, and it's not that great. And she just didn't need to be in this movie. And while I give it some credit that it didn't completely rip off Halloween 2018, and it did something a little bit new by making Sally Hardesty not the main figure, she's such a small part of this movie that she didn't need to be included, and it's further evidence to me that they were trying to force her in there because they now think that, let's make a direct sequel to the original and have a legacy character. That's the new formula for horror success. And they didn't really have a plan of what to do with her, and that to me was evident. I'm already kind of getting tired of the formula because I already feel like it's being overused. So there's that. The characters I didn't care for. I really didn't like Melody in this one either. I did like some of the social commentary. I know a lot of people don't like the social commentary in these movies. I know a lot of people didn't like the social commentary in Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills. I defend that. I actually didn't mind the social commentary. But yeah, the relationship between these two sisters and the characters in general just weren't great. And then obviously you're just not getting very much story with this movie as well, which honestly, I think for most Texas fans, that's going to be okay. Let's be honest. In these movies and in other franchises, we pay to see Michael or Leatherface or Jason just fuck people up. But those are my three big flaws, and they are pretty sizable flaws. But the other thing is this is a quick movie. It's only 83 minutes, and it's very well paced. Again, for an entry in a franchise that is just not my cup of tea, and entering the movie itself with very low expectations, this was a pretty decent Texas Chainsaw. And one that I did genuinely enjoy, and enjoy over a lot of the later sequels as well. Or earlier sequels, I should say, as well. So, yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Don't expect anything groundbreaking or great. I'm not saying it's a great Texas Chainsaw Massacre by any means. It definitely has some deep flaws. But overall, I think this was a very solid Texas Chainsaw for what it was. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for me. Those are my general thoughts on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. I'm excited to review this franchise again to see if maybe I like it better than I do at the moment. Maybe, I'm being a little bit unfair to a lot of these movies and I will like them better upon a second or a third viewing. And that ranking should be out in a week or two, so another Let's Rank Horror ranking, and I'm excited to bring that to you guys. And thanks for listening and watching, and subscribe and comment below, and I will see you guys later.